Hi, I'm Conor Kelly O'Brien. I'm an actor, writer, and the co-founder and executive director of the Scranton Fringe Festival. I am here having another conversation with a creative colleague of mine. This time we have Kristen Kosin, executive director of Meals on Wheels of Northeast Pennsylvania. Kristen, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Conor. How are you?
I'm doing so great. This is continuously the most awkward moment every time I talk to somebody.
Especially because I just saw you. I've been with you all afternoon.
And by the way, I want to tell everyone that every time to make sure they understand that how organic this is, and that, and let's no facades.
Yep, this is what it is.
This is what it is. Let's be real. I'm going to be asking you some questions that I may already know the answer to, but I want to make sure our friends out there are informed. Where did you grow up, Kristen?
Wilkes-Barre.
You grew up in Wilkes-Barre.
Yes.
So you grew up in Wilkes-Barre. You are currently the executive director of Meals on Wheels of Northeast Pennsylvania. How long have you had that position?
Since June 1st of 2015, so
Okay.
about 4.5 years.
About 4.5 years, going on 5. Now, that's your beginning, and that's where you currently are, but it wasn't like you stayed in this area all the time in between then. I'm going to rattle off very briefly, this is your life. Anything that jumps out, or correct me if I'm wrong. Grew up in Wilkes-Barre. You attended Bishop Hoban.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
What,
super sad.
Where is it been merged with something? Or
Yep, it's Holy Redeemer now.
Oh.
So I have no alma mater left. No grade school, no high school.
Is the building still there? Or is
It's still there, but it's still sad.
Okay. Tell me, if we were going to draw a quick picture, who was Kristen in high school?
She was pretty mouthy.
No.
I know, shocking, right? She would wear a black turtleneck under her uniform because she didn't understand why the boys could wear whatever they wanted, and it was cold, and we still had to wear what I thought was restrictive nonsense, and would get detention for it.
So you've been I was just going to say troublemaker, and I hate using that term because it indicates bad. You were a activist of your own creation.
Yeah, injustice is a thing. I observe a lot. I look, I see, and I have a thing about seeing what's an absolute right. Sometimes there are absolute rights, sometimes there are absolute wrongs, but I usually get a good sense of it, and I sometimes don't have a good tolerance for that, for absolute wrongs.
Do you find that personality trait to be completely from within, or was there someone in your family and upbringing that kind of instilled that virtue in you?
Both of my grandmothers, I'm not going to give my age, but I'm well, I do have a teenager, a son. So, but I just got my first tattoos, and they were from my grandmothers. And my Nana, my mom's mom, would say, you never could call people crazy, because she would say they're touched by the angels. You're not touched by the angels, so you have to be better, and you have to take care of them, and you have to defend them. And then my father's mother, my Grammy, would say, offer it up. So that meant you were in service, whatever your thing was, and mine was, maybe intelligence or observation or talking, which my family will say that's probably number one. But they examples of that, like just you try and do the right thing, just and it's not that it's difficult, but it's not always comfortable, and you just gotta offer it up, and you gotta remember that some people are touched and some people aren't.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I...
So from both of your matriarchs,
yeah,
kind of
they really had a profound kind of impact on how I live. And my grandmother, my very Catholic grandmother, sat Shiva. She went to Protestant weddings when that was not acceptable.
Right.
And she really was, kind of a little bit of a rebel for having 11 children. And
right on, Nana.
Yeah, that was Grammy.
Oh, Grammy.
Nana was also, Nana kept the A's. Nana was, it's a B plus. You're not a B plus student.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Interesting. So were we forced to be a little bit of a perfectionist?
Oh, we were forced to, know what where we were supposed to be, what we were capable of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that drive and energy from both of your grandmothers took you from Bishop Hoban to King's College. What did you study at King's?
International business.
And then from King's College, you studied overseas, correct?
Right. So I did a study abroad program when I was at King's in Innsbruck, Austria. Loved it. I had already gone on a trip with Bishop Hoban with our German club. So looking back, it was kind of a foregone conclusion. And so then I decided, I'm ready to graduate after 3 years, and I went to Vienna, Austria, because I felt like I already lived in Innsbruck for a little bit. Let's go to Vienna.
What was that like?
Amazing. Still, it was definitely difficult to leave. Difficult to leave my family. We have a wonderful, large, loud family, both sides. But I was ready, and coffee and conversation with you is what Vienna's about. Just the art, I always say it has a soul. The city, you're walking and you feel like ghosts are walking with you.
Do you get back there often?
I try. My son goes every year. It tries to go at least once or twice a year to see family. I used to be able to go once or twice a year, but running a nonprofit doesn't actually leave you a lot of time.
Preach. So, I wanted to ask you, sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ja, ich kann Deutsch sprechen.
That's it.
Ja, das war gut.
I can say, das ist ein Paperkorb.
Super.
And that's it. So I can ask
Das ist ein Bier.
I can ask someone where a bookcase or a wastebasket is. If that comes up in conversation often in Austria, I'm set.
Oh, listen, I'm going to teach you the best word, and it is
Okay.
a friend of mine in Vienna, or in Innsbruck actually, said it was his favorite word because Americans couldn't say it.
Okay.
It is Hubschrauber.
Hubschrauber.
Not bad.
Okay. What was I? Okay, so it's.
Helicopter. Hubschrauber.
We're not going to waste more time on this, but one more time. Walk me through it syllable by syllable.
Hubschrauber.
Hubschrauber.
Not bad.
Okay.
Very good.
I can almost say helicopter in German, audience. Maybe you can too. If there's any German speakers watching this for some reason, please comment below.
It's my favorite word. I don't know why.
It has a good rhythm to it.
It does. And I'm still friends with him 20 some years later, and it's a kind of a joke between us that Americans can't say that word.
So you didn't just bring back you didn't just pick up language and cultural love in Austria. Now,
Yeah,
did we also?
I got married, and we came back. I married an Austrian, and from that marriage, I have my wonderful son who will be so embarrassed that I'm talking about him on television, but he'll get over it.
Yeah. There's not really much you can do about it.
So listen, my role in life is to embarrass him for the next however many years I can.
You came back to the States, but I believe you settled in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area first, right?
Yeah, I was conscious. You have an international husband. You want to kind of come back to an area where there's more job opportunities, and I had family who was living, kind of in that metropolitan Baltimore, Washington area. So I was able to, kind of settle there for a little bit with the help of, wonderful family, and it's just more opportunity. There are more jobs, more, between Baltimore and Washington is 50 miles, and you've got lots of different choices.
There's also so many people there with international backgrounds. Yes. So being that that expat doesn't quite probably feel as
right. And you could teach German, and there were some. It was just like a nice way to settle back into life here.
So what did you do down there, work-wise?
So I did some different things. I worked for a lobby, a political lobby in D.C., a conservative lobby. Not my thing. So I actually said I felt a little dirty after. So I taught in Baltimore City Public Schools for a couple of years.
To balance out the karma?
Yes. To balance out, I felt like, and then I got into, and it was just a circumstance. I was just lucky. And I ended up in neighborhood redevelopment, real estate redevelopment, and specifically something called Hope 6 and Choice Neighborhoods, where you leverage large federal grants from HUD to rebuild distressed public housing. And you do mixed income, mixed use. And I was at the wonderful firm. And then when I decided to move back here, I was able to consult and keep, and do that for...
The work that you did, everything you just said in the DC, Baltimore area, what were some of your biggest takeaways? What did you learn out of the process?
I loved being a smart fish in a pond with a lot of smart fishes, where there's always somebody smarter than you, there's always somebody to learn from, there's always somebody to teach. I love teaching, but I love learning. And I think if you like to teach but you don't like to learn, how do you get better? So I liked that and working together.
You like the challenge.
I like the challenge, but I also listen, I'm not a civil engineer. I'm not a landscape engineer. I can't tell you what tree grows here, but that's why you have an expert. So what I was really good at was putting together and asking the right questions. As you know, I am the question asking person. You put me in a room and I don't know something, like, excuse me.
You know who to put in the room with you, though.
Yes, right. And I'll be the one asking the questions
Right.
because I just need to understand. So I really, that was the best. And I have some wonderful people that I still, work with and contact. Some of my best friends are, from living and working in that area.
Before we move on from that chapter of your life, if you had to pick one moment that really rises to the top of like your proudest moment with your work there. It doesn't have to be the most proud moment, because I didn't really prep you for this question, but what
No,
would,
you didn't. but we'll go with it.
What comes to mind?
There were a couple, and there were. There was a particularly difficult development that was what we would say didn't have a lot of soft boundaries. So it was in a neighborhood that still had some growing to do, where there was still poverty. It just was tough. And when people would call me, and when we would sell houses there and rent the houses, and we set up a community, worked with a community organization and set up an after-school program. And when people would say, oh, she's the owner. Oh, that's Miss Kristen, she's the owner. I wasn't the owner. But because I was there every day, I knew the kids' names and I knew the residents. And that kind of, and in that development, the president of the company, one morning at our construction meeting said, okay, guys, Kristen's going to take over these this is my last owners meeting. Kristen's got it from here. And everybody kind of looked at me and said, in 30 years of working with him, you are the first person ever that he's turned over an owners meeting to. And,
Wow.
But it was a combination of, I was so invested and there was so much good, and the residents respected me, the construction, and we were doing good. So it was just kind of I don't know, that little spring was a nice moment in time.
That seems very impactful. You very much became, for lack of a better term, the face and the champion of this endeavor.
Yes.
So I would assume, and I know, that you've taken that same champion advocate energy and brought it to your current role as executive director of Meals on Wheels of Northeast Pennsylvania. Now, probably anyone hearing this has a basic understanding of what Meals on Wheels does, but elevator pitch. You have a 2-minute presentation window. I'm sure you do this on a weekly basis.
Yes.
What are the stats?
Our kitchen, Monday through Friday, produces upwards of 1,000 meals a day. We service over 550 clients with home-delivered meals and/or supportive services, including home assistance and pet food. For 550 clients in Lackawanna County. We also support neighboring Meals on Wheels in Monroe County. They're a wonderful partner for us, and we provide space for other nonprofits and supportive event space, and we operate 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day.
That's a lot.
It's a long day, yeah.
What have you found to be your focuses as the leader of this organization since you assumed the role from your predecessor till today?
Well, I mean, if any executive director doesn't say financial stability, then
They're not doing their job.
They're fluffing over it. It's nonprofits are tough. I am running a restaurant, a big, very productive, very necessary and integral.
That majority of your customers either cannot pay for the food, or can only pay for a small portion of it.
And that may be the only food they eat. So it is a restaurant that cannot fail, that cannot go under, and it's vitally important. Yeah. So it's a staff of 30 plus. It's volunteers in the hundreds. It's 1,000 plus meals a day. It's 7-8 drivers on the road every day, plus another 35 volunteers. And you're doing the same thing every day, but every day is different.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you find it rewarding?
Yes, and I'm not gonna lie, it's exhausting. I mean, it's very rewarding, but I am daily, the work that I do to ensure that the agency is there and runs and has what it needs: staff, food, electricity, water, fuel. I have to make sure that my team, that's so fantastic, that executes this on a daily basis, has what it needs. That's a profound responsibility. And some mornings,
How and when, if ever, do you ensure you have what you need?
oh, it's last on the list. That's a better question for the husband.
Oh, okay.
I save that for him.
Okay. So I will also mention that you mentioned it, that there's a portion of your facility that you've really beautifully renovated.
Yes.
The space at Olive.
Yes.
As a community space for other nonprofits,
Yes.
for meetings. We've used it at the Fringe Festival, and
Yes.
it's a phenomenal, phenomenal resource. That's one, I could go on a million, but for the sake of time, that's one example of a way that I've seen you, as the leader of a large nonprofit, work with some of the smaller nonprofit organizations. And I'm just one example of, I'm sure, dozens and dozens and dozens. The NEPA Youth Shelter, other causes. You and I have, off camera, had lots of conversations on how important it is for nonprofit organizations and community groups to work together.
Yes.
And I think we can sit here and say yes and give a million good examples. For the sake of something a little more interesting, let's be honest,
Yeah.
that's the ideal.
Yes.
And it's possible. It's not always the case.
No, unfortunately not. You and I talked about this before. It's almost that zero-sum game that's going on here. And I'll be honest with you, coming from Baltimore, Washington, I was a little naive. I mean, I grew up here.
Mm-hmm. Explain what you mean when you say the zero-sum game.
So it means that if I have power, if I have success, then you can't have power. Because if I subtract what I have from what you have, it means we can't have equal, because it has to.
There's a finite amount.
Right, and it's got to equal zero.
Which is not true. Yes, there are funding and grants and stuff like that, but I mean, for example, our two organizations are never going after the same kind of support and funding. But I will also say that I think we're a microcosmic good example of service-based nonprofit, cultural and community-based nonprofits. Those are the kind of partnerships that should be happening more and more and more. Yes, it's great when we work with other theater and performing arts nonprofits, but you can only preach the same message to the same 1,000 people over and over and over.
You have to have champions. You have to have people who are, and I think we do. We have a small, and I see the change that are willing to say, just because it's been this way doesn't need to be, and it doesn't need to be us against them, or me against. But again, there's a great way to partner. There are events you could partner with, and we piggyback on, like you said, from a volunteer group to, providing meals for the youth shelter and having them have a space for their after-school program. Why does that need to take away from somebody else? I don't.
Fear.
Fear. It's absolutely fear. It's a fear of, if you have something, I don't have it, and you're taking it away from me. Intrinsically, I don't understand that. And I think when more people are afraid, fear just propagates into this mass cloud of doom. And it's like, listen, money is finite, time is finite. We all have to do this together. We work together. That's what we have to do. Look for conflict-free board members. Look for partnership opportunities that are positive. Look for those who can help those nonprofits with operating costs or this or that.
Everything, and I agree, everything you're saying, though, is systemic, handed down in nonprofit culture, generation to generation to generation. So everything you're saying is absolutely right.
Absolutely.
But I think that I know you agree with this, but I think we always have to remember, we're not just fighting like one or two bad incidents. We're fighting, I said this on an earlier show, or a different... A culture. I truly believe in Northeast Pennsylvania, I believe we have community level trauma.
Yes.
I believe we have absolutely community level trauma, which a large part of that is due to the fact of how, and not all, but how many of our previous leaders and administrations have epically, deplorably failed.
Yeah, there's a muffle, there's a fear, there's a Stockholm syndrome. It's this community level, it's this PTSD, it's any number of things. When you're afraid to speak up, or you see somebody singled out because they're saying, we have to be better, we have to do better, and you stand back and say, I can't do that.
Right.
That's fear. That's community level trauma. How did that get here? It wasn't here, didn't just show up yesterday.
Right.
That is ingrained. And
Right.
no, we need more people to speak up, but we also need more people to say, look, we're in this together. I will be an example. If anybody knows, I've said this time and time again, and it is very true. If you pick up the phone and call me, I will do whatever I can to help you. I don't have to agree with your cause. I don't have to, but I believe in the right thing, or as somebody asks for help and it's something I can easily help with, I'm just going to do it. It doesn't diminish me. It doesn't.
Without sounding too pandery, I'm going to bring that to a point that bring that back to a point that you and I discussed before we came on camera, which was, I will fully admit this, and I challenge anyone to deny this. At least in my experience in nonprofit, especially nonprofit services and group organizations, they are, I would say, most of the time led by women or those who identify as female.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And that's a testament to that. But yet we still see, even in our nonprofit world, patriarchal standards pushing women down and not letting them engage in the conversation.
Right. So
how's it going?
Hi.
It's our next contender. You're going to head over there with our crew over there. That's Casey Thomas, everybody. We'll be with him in a few minutes.
So it's definitely, there's an interesting, I think as women, whether you look at it nature, nurture, we're caregivers, or we're taught to be caregivers, or physiologically we're caregivers. So I think there's a natural gravitation to service.
Would you agree that we don't just need women, which we do absolutely in the executive director and director roles. We need women who are also the ones who can cut the damn checks.
Absolutely. And I think the problem is, I've had definite little pats on the head, like, oh, little girl. And let me say, they're metaphorical pats on the head, although there might have actually been a pat on the head at one point. But we need more women who cut the checks. We need more women with business backgrounds. We need more women to stand up and fight and say, you know what? This is what needs to happen.
And to be clear, there are plenty of women doing that,
Yes.
but they need to be at the board table.
Yes,
they need to be invited in.
Yes, at the table. They need to be at the tables of the financial institutions.
Yes.
They need to be at the tables of government. They need to be in the tables, at all of the tables represented.
Do you find any hope in our current new dynamic of administration? Just for the record, we have our first female identifying mayor of Scranton.
Yes.
We have our first open LGBT politician in Lackawanna County, period, on city council. We also have, I believe, and I could be wrong, the first female-led school board.
I believe so.
And the first female Democrat elected county commissioner.
Right.
Now, despite how anyone may feel about their policy choices down the road, and there really hasn't been enough time to determine that, as a woman who's in a strong leadership position in an organization, a long-standing organization in this community, how do you react to this? Do you react at all?
I think you have to react to it. I think, one, diversity is good. Diversity is not bad. Diversity of thought, diversity of gender, diversity of education, diversity of race, diversity of religion, all good. Diversity is good. Change is good. So I look at it like this. It's kind of a large wave of change. Like, it's a kind of uplifting as a female, as you said, regardless of political affiliation. It's nice to be able to identify. I think there's strength in identification. There's confidence in identification. And so when you have girls and young women who can identify with someone in a position, I think that's better for everyone. Because down the road, there's always, when a board's trying to say, oh, I don't want to be president, or I don't want to be this, or, you look at a community group, I don't want to be the CEO, or I don't want to do, because you're tired, this gives more people something to identify or aspire to.
If we magically could have, without naming them, certain, let's say, individuals, entities from our region who maybe aren't as, and again, this isn't no one that we've mentioned so far,
Right.
but let's say there's a couple of nonprofit organizations in our area that you and I have dealt with that aren't necessarily as engaged as they could be, and it's a shame to their own detriment. If they were sitting here in this room, no cameras, and you had the power to say exactly what you wanted to, succinctly, what would you say?
We have to be better. Doing the right thing is not that hard. It's not about our egos. It's about the community, because community, we hear community banking, community policing, community services, all these different things where we put the word community in front of. Well, guess what? You have to have a strong base of a community to have community banking, to make money, to generate interest, to make investments.
And I think it boils down to what you said. It's not about the ego. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about one person.
It's about the community.
Right.
And having that community, because that's what's going to provide a sustainable place for our children, our grandchildren.
Maybe yours. I'm good.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure I'm getting grandchildren either. I am, maybe some more grandcats or dogs, a bird.
And I think it's worth mentioning for the record, I personally, just my personal opinion, I have a lot of faith in the new leadership in this region that's taking hold. And if nothing else, I think what it represents is so impactful and so important.
The voice, the people that are speaking. I feel, and people can disagree, and that's cool, because I'm all about it.
Sure.
I'd actually rather argue with somebody than sit and talk with somebody I agree with all the time.
Oh, I'm sorry. This must have been miserable then. I've just been agreeing with everything you said.
But one of the things is, listen, the more voices that are heard, the more information you get.
Right.
So I'm an observer. So I'm listening. I'm looking. The more we hear from, the more information we get.
Agreed.
And we could synthesize that. And we're all different, so we could synthesize it in different ways. And how cool is that we could make things better? Hey, let's work together. It's not that hard.
Kristen, it's been so nice having you here and
thank
talking.
you. It's always a pleasure.
Before we wrap up, I do have a couple random questions I want to ask you. I've been doing this with everybody. Take a breath. They're just personal, off the top of your head.
I'm ready.
What time of the day do you get up?
4:44 a.m.
Why 4:44? That's such a specific time.
I like even double numbers, and I hate waking up on quarter of the hours.
I adore you. That's weird. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
How do you take your coffee?
Depends on the place.
Okay. What's your favorite color?
Probably blue.
Favorite book, TV, or movie that you've read recently that really jumped out at you?
Book, TV, The Good Place, the finale of The Good Place.
Very sweet. Last question. I'm not kidding you, the most divisive one we keep getting every time I ask this question. What's your favorite coffee shop in Northeast Pennsylvania?
A dozen.
Oh my God. I'm not kidding. We are not prompting. We are not getting paid. Because this is you're the fifth or sixth person. Wow, I'm not sure what order we're airing this, but it's truthfully over and over. Okay. We're going to move on.
It feels Viennese to me. So I've got to read. It's in an alley. It's got the cute little patio. It's attached to the art gallery.
All right, we're hitting Adezo up for some money because this is getting absolutely crazy. I've been here with Kristen Kosin, Executive Director of Meals on Wheels of Northeast Pennsylvania. Kristen, if they want to learn more about your organization, where can they go?
www.mealsonwheels.nepa.org or on Facebook, Meals on Wheels Community Services of NEPA.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're really happy to have you here. Thank you so much. This conversation was amazing.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's it.